And we're back here on the Final Five with more on the big news out of Capitol Hill this weekend, the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act. And one of the men in that room, Senator Chris Van Hollen from Maryland, up late with me tonight on the Final Five. I know it's been a rough and a long couple of days. You're past the finish line here. And after all of this, will it happen, won't it happen? It passed. What went through your mind once the A's were counted?
Well, Jim, it's good to be with you. I was thrilled. As you said, this has been a roller coaster ride, really, for a matter of weeks and months. And finally, everything came together after a long, about 50-hour debate in the United States Senate. And this is going to be good news for millions of American seniors who will see their drug prices go down. It's going to be great for our investment in clean energy and a whole range of other things. So the bottom line, I was thrilled to get this over the finish line.
So you mentioned about clean energy, green energy, and the idea of climate change, funding ways to mitigate that. About $369 billion of this package goes towards that. Let's focus on that for a moment, because we talk a lot about the tax credits. We talk a lot about the investment. We're going to see what would likely be a gold rush, as Axios called it, in investing in clean energy. What do you see as the hallmark of that? And does the pressure now turn to making that happen in Maryland?
Well, yes, and yes, with respect to Maryland, the hallmark of this is that in aggregate, it's going to help reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030, which is the target scientists tell us we need to hit in order to have any chance of avoiding the worst part of climate change, which of course is already very much with us in terms of the impact on our communities. This is going to mean a major investment in clean energy, both in terms of technology, but I'll give you another example that will help homeowners, something I've worked on. It includes rebates for homeowners who want to make their homes more energy efficient. That will help them save on their heating bills and on their cooling bills. So it's good for consumers. At the same time, we're helping to address climate change.
For the people who look at this and they say, okay, we talked about climate change, we talk about prescription drug prices and finding ways to mitigate the cost for that for older Americans especially, it goes down to the title, Inflation Reduction Act. So what does all of this do when it comes to reducing the impact of inflation, which we have seen across the country?
Well, it does something directly with drug prices, for example, right, bringing them down. In terms of overall inflation, you know, former Secretary of Treasury Larry Summers has said that the deficit reduction impact of this, which is over $300 billion, puts downward pressure on inflation. Obviously, fighting inflation requires that we battle on a number of fronts. The main front, of course, is the Federal Reserve through their monetary policy. But because this reduces our deficit, that also creates downward pressure on price hikes. As I said, in certain areas like prescription drugs for seniors, it will be, you know, very clear that they'll see reduction in prices. Also, as I mentioned, for, you know, homeowners who decide to get the rebates to drive down their heating and cooling bills.
One provision that a lot of people have focused on is the idea that it includes some $80 billion to step up enforcement efforts with the IRS and to get people sort of to pay taxes that maybe weren't paid along the way. And there are some that believe, yes, maybe this is aimed towards some of the wealthier people who aren't paying their taxes, but could this trickle down to lower middle class taxpayers?
Well, this is aimed at the very high earners. I've had the IRS commissioner in front of my appropriations subcommittee, and we've been very clear, and he's been very clear, that this is to go after very high income taxpayers who are not paying what they already owe. And he estimates that the tax gap could be as much as $500 billion to $1 trillion every year in wealthy people engaging in tax dodges and not paying their fair share and what they already owe.
We went from Build Back Better, which obviously was a lot of back and forth there, and it became the Inflation Reduction Act. And when you look at the debate that went on over the weekend, Senator Bernie Sanders had said it doesn't go anywhere near as far as it should. We know there was some will she or won't she with Senator Sinema, and they found a way to bring her on board by stripping a tax provision for private equity. Now you have all of your Democratic colleagues on board here. Is it fair to say you have a united front going into what's going to be a very contentious midterm, which I know that affects you personally as well, being on the ballot?
I do think we have a united front. Obviously, there were some differences. I would have preferred to include some of these things in the package. At the end of the day, we're not. I would have liked to eliminate some of the tax breaks that we didn't, but we eliminated a lot of tax breaks, including, requiring that, corporations, big corporations that make over $1 billion a year, at least pay some income taxes. So I think that this is something that will be broadly supported by the American people. Cutting the cost of prescription drugs for seniors on Medicare has been something I've been working on for over a decade. Finally, we got it done. And the investment in clean energy is something that's going to help grow a lot of good paying jobs in the area. If you look at Maryland, we have 2 big offshore wind projects, which are going to generate about 10,000 good paying jobs. So that's the kind of thing that this will also help boost and promote. All
right, Senator Chris Van Hollen, always appreciate your time with us here on Fox 5. And is there any rest for the weary now past this weekend?
Yeah, we're gonna, we're not gonna be running around the clock for 24/7, okay, but still a lot of work to do back here in Maryland.
Senator, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And the Final 5 is back right after this.